Hey everyone, I'm Jill Westerland.
And I am Rob Schultz, and welcome to, I guess this would be day 4, our first Monday of AP Computer Science A live lessons. Again, I'm Rob Schultz, and I'm working with Mrs. Westerland down in Alabama, and we wanted to bring up a little map again to kind of refresh your memories as to where we are, but Mrs. Westerland has been working tirelessly to start marking where some of you are, the ones that have responded back on the form that we'll be showing you later. So keep those coming. We love getting your pictures of your pets and the snippets of music that you've written and the memes and things like that. We're getting responses from all across the United States, and we've even gone international. We've got India and El Salvador in the house. So welcome, and we're glad that everyone is with us. Looking at our schedule for this week, today and tomorrow, we're going to be looking at ArrayLists, and we will eventually bounce back to ArrayLists again, but we wanted to start getting into some of the review topics and lay a little bit of groundwork for what's coming up later in the week. On Wednesday, we're going to introduce recursion, and on Thursday and Friday, we'll be discussing binary search and merge sort. So today, Mrs. Westerland is going to walk through an introduction to ArrayLists and traversing ArrayLists. Tomorrow, I'll pick up from there, and we'll talk about the ArrayList methods that are on the AP subset. And then from there, we'll just barely brush the surface of recursion. We'll kind of hit the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so when we first started doing this, Mrs. Westerland and I talked about the fact that we would probably have a blooper here and there, and I have earned the dubious honor of getting the first blooper slide. So if you recall, on Thursday, for those that were with us on Thursday, when we were talking about constructors for subclasses, I showed a slide that featured the default constructor for the object class. The main point I wanted to make with that slide was that if we instantiate an object from a class that has absolutely no constructors, then the default constructor in the object class will be invoked to set the state of the object. And during that discussion, I said that the default constructor is inherited by the class, which is a false statement. That is absolutely not true. Only public class members are inherited, and constructors are not class members, and they're not technically even constructors. So, so that was an oops on my part. Hopefully our blooper slides will be few and far between, but I do have the, like I said, the dubious honor of earning our first blooper slide. So I apologize for any confusion that I might have caused. So Mrs. Westerland, with that, I'm going to pass things over to you for today's warm-up and today's lesson.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about ArrayList off of a class. I hope that over the last 2 or 3 days and over the weekend, you spent some time on the resources that we've given you and powered yourself up so that you're equipped for kind of where we're going this week. You should have been working with some classes. Hopefully, if you're on a smartphone or tablet or Chromebook, you have tried JDoodle by now. I've been sharing you links to projects in JDoodle. You're welcome to try it even if you have a PC, but we feel like that will be a great tool for the students who are not able to download an editor of a different type. Over the weekend, we asked you to work on or think about a class that you would like to work with this week. And so we're going to get you started on that today. And then I don't want you to forget that each day in your Power Up lesson, we're giving you links from the course and exam description to specific online resources that could be done in any device friendly for rereading, reading for the first time, coding, practice coding. Please take time to use those resources. Here's a list of vocabulary. I've highlighted the words in yellow that we're going to be revisiting this week, especially today and tomorrow. You'll hear more about the things that are in yellow as they come up in the lesson. The things that are not shaded in yellow were vocabulary we spoke about in lessons 9, 1, 2, and 3. Well, I should have included inheritance and polymorphism as well. Those are not going away. We suggest that you use, obviously, a notebook and a pencil. I've given you a copy of a page of my notes. I think I told you on Friday that when we got finished with the lesson, I was going to take one of the slides about the differences in overriding and overloading, and I was going to rewrite that in my own notebook, which is what I've taken a picture of here. You can see where I've added some clarification about that for an overloaded item, the parameter set could be a change in numbers, type, number of parameters, type of parameter, or order of parameters. So I hope you're taking notes. If you're not, we're going to keep encouraging you to do that, and maybe you'll start. So let's go through the lesson overview from the standpoint first of the prior knowledge. It's important for today's lesson that you already know from Unit 5 how to create a class and identify the parts of a class, because we're going to be building our array list off of a user-made class. So I'm going to walk you through the process. Today's lesson comes from Unit 7. It's likely that your teacher had gotten to this point before school was interrupted this spring. It might have been that you were in the middle of Unit 7, or it was close to where you were when you were interrupted. But I'm sure that most people got through Unit 5. But we're going to review a little bit of Unit 5 before we walk into ArrayList. So the first thing I want to go through are the parts of a class. And I've identified the 4 critical parts of a class, and then I've identified toString with a plus sign, because you don't have to have a toString method in a class, but we're going to need a toString method because we're going to be using it when we construct our array list. So let me show you where these things would be labeled. The public class declaration is the header of the class. Private instance variables we worked with last week, that's part number 2. Constructor, where we initialize our variables, part number 3. Methods, and I just marked one of them, but you might have many methods. You also might have set methods to go along with the get methods. And then the plus sign one is toString, because we're going to need a toString. And here's a little bit more about toString. It's going to bring back to you a string representation, or essentially a printout of the object that you've created for your array list. And you're going to see that before the end of today. ToString is a method of the object class, which I put in quotes here as the mother of all classes. It's the class in Java that sits above the others. Object is invoked when an object reference, and you can read that, is an instance of a class is printed. So the toString is what gets called when we ask for an array list to be printed or an object to be printed. And we can override it like we talked about on Friday. So now let's quiz ourselves. We have a little background music that someone submitted. Thanks so much. I'm going to time you for about 30 seconds. I'd like for you to match the word to its colored arrow. So which one's the constructor? Yellow. Header, the red arrow. ToString, that one you shouldn't have missed. It's all ToString. Method, got 3 there. Private instance variables, 3 of those, right up under the header. So I hope you got those perfect. Now let's look at what's happening in the toString method. Which private instance variables are being called here? If you answered name and age, you're correct. This is a return statement that's concatenated. So this is adding really nothing. Adding the variable text, space is space, and then here's. So now let's look at what you need to know about today's lesson, because we're going to be talking about array lists for the rest of this lesson. All of that was background that I hope is in your wheelhouse from Unit 5. ArrayList is a class. ArrayList requires an import. The data stored in the objects can only be accessed by methods, which makes ArrayList use more efficient and more secure. So you're going to be building the data as you create the objects. Array lists are dynamically sized. So if you remember from Unit 6 of the course, when you learned about one-dimensional arrays, those you have to declare a size. With ArrayList, we have dynamic sizing so that we can keep adding, changing, resetting our array list as our data set needs to grow. Array lists are going to store objects, not primitive data types. And we're going to look at that as we think about the anatomy of an array list. So here's how you create an array list. First of all, like we mentioned last week, and especially on Friday, all of last week we talked about inheritance and how class files can interact with one another. We're going to take that back a few steps because today we want to zero in on just one class, because we're going to build an array list from just one class. We don't have to worry about all the others. If we needed multiple array lists from multiple classes, we could do that. Those would all be independent. We're going to think about just the animal class for today. Here is how we would declare an array list that would be built off of our animal class. Array list of the animal type, because it's going to come off of our class. And we're going to name the array list my list. And then we have to instantiate it. And then again, we're going to say that it's an array list of the animal type. And we can put as many items in it as we would like to. Now, here's what we also have to know when we're working with array lists. You have to decide as the programmer how you want to manage your files and access your information. You really got two things happening at this point. You've got a class with its toString. Sometimes people code that in one Java file. And then we have what sometimes people call a runner or a tester that might be in a separate Java file. So we're going to unpack that just a little bit as we go through today. Let's break down the anatomy. First, we're going to declare, in other words, we're going to tell Java, I want an array list. You're declaring to Java, this is what I want you to let me create. Then in the brackets, we have to tell it what data type, the name, we instantiate it, declare it again what we want. We want a new array list of the same data type. And then for the parameter, you're going to leave that empty if you want your array list to be dynamic and able to grow. You could put a number in there, but that then is going to limit your array list to the size that you insert in that set of brackets. So it's not typical to do that. Here are your options for data types. And there are more than these, but these are the ones that we typically see in the Computer Science A course. We're going to be focusing today on a user-made class off of, I'm going to use the animal scenario. But we also will see when we come back to this in a few weeks, we'll talk about making an array list out of string, integer, and double, which happen to be wrapper classes. So I want to make two side notes. The first side note is about the use of these two files. In my classroom, I call this tandem file use. Tandem meaning we've got two things that work with each other. And I like to think of that with a bicycle. You have two wheels on your bicycle. They're both going to be going in the same direction, and we need two wheels to have a bicycle. You might also hear that it called server client. I think Mr. Schultz used that terminology last week. Class runner, class tester. The class would be our animal, like I've shown you on the previous slides. And then you might have a completely separate Java file where you have your tester code, your main method sits there, and you actually implement things there. Or you can actually put both of these things in what I'm going to call today a combo file, where the way that I do it, and I'll show you this today, the main method portion is at the top. And then below all of that, we have the class sitting there to be used. Java really doesn't care. It's more secure to use the two system, but I've built it out for you both ways in JDoodle, because if you're on a Chromebook or a tablet or a cell phone, it's probably going to be a whole lot simpler to function with a combo file than actually manipulating a project and having two files that work together. So here are a couple of options. JDoodle, we've talked about several times. It's browser-based. It will let you build a project and use multiple files together, and I hope you've seen that in the links that we shared, or obviously a combo file. Mr. Schultz and I, and a lot of people use JGrasp. It's a free IDE developer environment that a lot of people use. It's actually a National Science Foundation funded project out of Auburn University, which is a couple of hours from me. So actually is also where I went to college. So anyway, but that's a side note about JGrasp, but it's a free download. So if you have a PC and you use a different IDE, you may want to try JGrasp. It has some nice bells and whistles that we like in the computer science classroom. And if you're on a Chromebook, phone, or tablet, definitely try JDoodle. So now let's look at making an array list. And what I did really is I just kind of launched off of animals that we talked about last week, and I created a new class called Animals of CSA. So last week y'all looked at some animals from teachers, maybe your teacher from around the country, and here are a few of them. Here are some more. And I don't really know the goat's name, but I decided that he or she was greatest of all time goat. So that's what I made them. And I think this might be a carved snake. I don't know. But I included it not because of my love of snakes, because they terrify me, but because my uncle went to Georgia Tech after he got home from World War II. And so our family loves Georgia Tech. So, and one of my students who is an Amazon future engineer is now a student at Georgia Tech. So anyway, that superseded the fact that it was a snake for me. So we have these animals that you've been looking at from your teachers who are supporting you all around the country. And I decided we'd make an array list of them. So I built a class called Animals CSA. And because this class is sitting below, it's in the combo file and it's sitting below its tester up above, and you'll see that in a little while. It isn't its own public class because you can only have one public class. So that's why this looks a little bit different than you might have seen. And I can show it to you multiple ways if time permits. This is going to be one of those days. I told Mr. Schultz before he got started that it's like you teach bell to bell. So we won't be cutting out of class early today. So I needed to have two constructors, or one constructor and an overloaded constructor, because I did not know the school name for all the different teachers that sent me pictures. So I knew their state or their city, and it also brings back some prior knowledge that we reviewed last week. So up in the upper portion of the combination file, after I imported and declared my public class, Animals of CSA, and there's no magic to that, you can name it whatever you want to, and bring in my main method, I declare an array list of the Animals CSA type. That's the class I just showed you on the previous slide. And I'm going to call my list of animals pets. And that's not special either. I just decided I would call it that. And then it is a new array list of the animals of CSA type. And because I left these open, I can put as many of them in there as I would like. So I just began adding animals, and you can see the structure of this. Mr. Schultz is going to teach tomorrow about the methods for array lists that are on the Java Quick Reference. So you're going to learn You're going to see and learn more methods than just .add tomorrow, but I began putting in animals. Some of these you've seen, some of them you haven't seen yet. So I typed them in. And now the whole point of this is we want to do something with our animal data. We have all these objects that are all pets, and we want to do something with them. So the first thing I wanted to do was just print out all my pets. So remember I told you at the beginning of the lesson today that when we want to print our pets, when I make this statement that's indicated with the blue arrow, it's going to reference what to print out my pets. I hope you answered in your mind the toString. It's going to look in the class that it's sitting on, which is animal CSA, and it's going to see what's in that toString method, and that's what it's going to print. So here you see, and I started with Mr. Schultz's dog, and then my dog, and then ARF, and in no particular order, I just began to add. I also wanted to check to see, well, how many animals do I have in my list? And so I called another method, .size, to tell me that I have 16 animals. And we have many more than that to look at. That's just where I stopped typing. So when we just call the toString in this format, it's going to print all the objects that we have in our list, one after the other, separated by a comma. So that's one thing that you can do with an array list really quickly to see, okay, does my code work? What do my objects look like? What's the format? If I wanted this to look fancier, where would I make that change? I hope you answered that I would go back to the class and go back to the toString, and I would change the toString statement because whatever's in that toString statement is what I'm going to get here when I call it to print. And you'll see in a few slides forward that I've done that. And so the printout looks a little bit different. So the second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to traverse. Now, traverse means to move through, to go through. So if you've ever been to an amusement park and you started going through the back and forth lines, wiggling your way to get to the very front so you could actually get on the roller coaster, you were traversing through the queue. You might have then gone through a turnstile where they wanted to count how many people are going to ride this roller coaster today, and you traverse through that. So it's just a fancy word for going through something, going through a process. So this is a traditional for loop that's going to take our pets and it's going to look through pets until it gets to the size. And for every pet that it finds, it's going to print it out. And because I have a line statement there, print line, it's going to give me all my pets on their own line. Now we're going to look at a traversal using an enhanced for loop. So this is the same output. If you notice, the output did not change at all. The syntax of the for loop changed because this time I'm telling Java to look for all the items, which are pets, and print them out. The third thing I wanted to show you today, and this is just kind of an interesting little thing, I thought it would be fun to look for a random pet from our list. So we have this list that could be 16 pets, it could be 116 pets, and maybe we want to just pull one out of the hat. So let's say we have a dog toy or a cat toy or something that a goat would like, and we want to give a prize to one of our pets. So I want you to look at the line that I have the blue arrow drawn to. I've declared a new variable called rand. It could have been called rand number, random number, whatever you wanted to call it. What is circled in green? This should take you back all the way to unit 2, I think, of the course, maybe even unit 1. What's happening there that's circled in green? I hope you answered in your mind that we're casting our result to be an integer. And we're using math.random, which is another thing from the Java quick reference from like unit 2, unit 3, I think unit 2 probably. And we're going to multiply our random method by the number of pets that we have and then grab it as an integer. And this is going to then let us get back the result of that random variable. So when I ran that code, I got Louie, the dog, who represents Everett High School in Washington. And if I ran this code again and again, and if we have time, I'm going to show you the code, it's going to pluck us out a random pet every single time. And here is Louie. It's cute. So I want to loop back now that you've kind of seen the code. We had our source code class called Animal CSA, and I edited the animals that I had last week to create this. I didn't start from scratch. And hopefully you'll do the same tonight. Take one of your classes that you created last week, whether it was superheroes or careers or cars, and edit it or use it the way that it is. I just needed a few different private instance variables than I had created last week. So that was why I edited. And I added a toString and then created a tester file with a main method so that I could declare my array list. Or we can look at it as a combo. So let's look again at what we said earlier about ArrayList. ArrayList is a class. It requires an import. And some of you may at school type import java.util.star for the wildcard asterisk. That will work and that's fine. In my room, I would say that's a little bit of a cop out because probably when you get to college, your professors are going to make you drill into exactly what it is that you want to import. They don't tend to like, import Java star.star. That's definitely a bit of a, cop out kind of a way to do it. So it's fine, it'll work, but you may just want to get used to importing what it is that you want to import or get as close to it as you need. Just prepare for college in that way. And don't be shocked when your college professors want it that way, because it might be different than how we've done it in high school. Data stored in the objects can be accessed by your methods. Data can grow, and your data are going to be stored as objects. Here's vocabulary that was new today: ArrayList, import, instantanate. Do you remember the keyword that goes with instantanate? I hope you said new in your mind. And then traverse, to move through something. I've included in italics words that we covered last week and that were mentioned in lessons. Your best source for working through the vocabulary of this course is going to be the course and exam description. And I've abbreviated that as CED in your Power Up lessons. Please follow that link and get to know this document because we're going to be referring to it again and again. And I am sure you've done that throughout the year. So that should not be new. Tomorrow, Mr. Schultz is going to teach you how to use your array list to manipulate elements. So it's going to be important that you do some homework tonight so that you get ready to use your array. Now I'm going to switch to JGrasp now. And we've got a little bit of time. I'm going to clear this down here. So let's look at what we have. I've got a few different files to show you. I think we'll start with, this is the combination tester and class file. So I think I'm going to start here since this is what I showed you in the slides. I'm going to move my output window down just a little bit because we don't have to see that just yet. So as you can see, I've imported Java util array list, declared my public class, and here are all my animals. So we could definitely come in here and type in more animals. I hope you see somebody from near you. I tried to include one from every different state that we've received from so that each state was represented in the array list. And here's where I asked for it to print out all my pets. You saw that on the slides, and grab the size. So when you have an array list tomorrow, part of Mr. Schultz's lesson is going to be to teach you to do more than just add to. So I would like for y'all to at least get this far tonight by building a list. You can handwrite it, you can code it. Here's the traditional loop, the enhanced loop, and then here's getting a random element. So that's my entire main method of action that I want to be put upon my class. And then I chose to put a comment here so that it was really clear to me or someone else where my class animal CSA began. Now, if I run this code, I have it put to an output window. So I'm gonna scroll back up. So if you see here, this is where I just called it to print. It just gave me this huge block of every single animal separated by a comma. That's not necessarily useful to look at. And now it looks like there's 18 in there. I must have added a few after I built my slide
Mrs.
deck.
Westerland, I'm going to interrupt real quick
Yeah.
because it's still sharing your code, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
it must
Hang
have
on a
opened in a
second.
separate window
Let's look.
because we can't see that window.
You can't see. You need to be able to see. All right, we'll just use the bottom, right?
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, that'll work.
Let me go up here. I think I have to turn off run in a DOS. How about that? Now we'll run it.
Give that a try.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's why we have 4 eyes. Well, I have 2 extras, so we have 6. Many
Well, I've
eyes.
actually got 2 as well, but
okay,
I've got
well,
contacts, so we've got 8.
Even better, even better. Okay, so now you're seeing the output of my code, and I can scoot this up so that it's not just at the bottom. So you see the output, and in this format, you only just see a few dogs because it just runs off into the distance. Then you have the single lines, and then you have the traversal. And this time when I ran it, the goat was our randomly selected animal from Clear Lake, Texas. So if I run it again, Sunshine the dog from Shorecrest, Florida, and that's Miss Esmeralda's dog. She used to be in Baton Rouge and she moved. Spaz the cat. So there we go. So it's going to pluck us a random one every single time. And this is the combo file. So now let's look at how it might look in a 2-file situation. So here is, and I'm going to clear this so you don't have to look at that down there. Here is the class file. And because this is a separate file, it is its own public class. It's the same exact code as what I have pasted down below. And here I want to change something in the toString just so that we'll see. It's returning pet name. Let's see. So this would be like Bo the dog representing Hoover High School in Alabama. So we could say Bo is a dog. And it's important to leave that space bar, you know, or it won't. Whose owner teaches at blank school in blank. So that's a little bit of a difference. Make sure I didn't mess it up. All right. And now the catch with this, if you're not familiar, depending on how you've worked this year, is this Java file must be saved in the same folder. And you can see I'm going to let my mouse hover there. It's actually in a Dropbox folder of mine. It has to be in the same folder as its companion class, which has the runner. That's what you're looking for. And that's why we typically give it a name and put tester or runner, something that triggers so that people will know that these 2 files have an association. So I don't need to change anything here. We could, but we don't need to. It's the same methods that you're already familiar with. I'm just going to be paranoid and save it again and compile it again. And now we're going to run it. And let's see who spits out and what our toString looks like today. So you see it changed all my outputs. Every time it got called, it changed to Sammy is a dog whose owner teaches at Newfound Regional. Apex is a dog from Friendship High School in North Carolina. Fenway and Brady are dogs who live in Atlanta with Miss Furman. Nellie is a dog whose owner teaches in Utah. So that's how these 2 files will work. This is how an array list works, to hold data and manage data and let us do interesting things with data. So what I would like for y'all to do tonight, and I'm going to switch back to my slides to kind of finish us out for today, is I want you to build an array list tonight. whether on paper or in an editor, so that you've got something to act upon tomorrow as you learn these methods. Here's the folder where we're sharing your Power Up lesson. I've given you source code that you've seen today. I did not give you the one with the finished array list, mainly because I want you to use some other resources to get to that. I've given you enough to where you can do your homework. You can always rewatch the video and pause it so that you can see the exact syntax, but I've given you some notes as well. I've added a new folder to our Google Drive called exclamation point journal notes. And the reason I threw the exclamation point in is so it'll kick it to the top and not get buried in the middle. But y'all probably already used that. I've shared both a combo project and a multi-file project in JDoodle for those of you on Chromebooks. So there shouldn't be a reason why you can't interact today with some ArrayList code. Here's what I've asked you to do. Mr. Schultz is going to be expecting this for tomorrow. You've got some things to practice in Runestone and an ArrayList to build. I also would love it, especially if you're taking notes, you'll just make my heart happy. I've snipped here for you the ArrayList class methods that are a part of the Java Quick Reference. These are exactly the ones that Mr. Schultz is going to go over tomorrow. He may do more than these, but he's definitely going to cover these. You've seen a couple of these today already, but he's going to cover them in a new and different way. I would love for y'all to write these down. And I know you're rolling your eyes probably, but get a pen or a pencil, but a pen is better because it doesn't smear, and write these down. Think now about your assessment for Computer Science A in a few weeks or a month. How are you going to be assessed? Building muscle memory and getting these things into your brain so that you can retrieve them quickly. Writing things down will also help you create a notebook of resources and references. The other really important thing that we want you to do tonight after you write some code is I want you to pull up and work on paper, scratchbook paper. If you have a way to print, I don't print at my house. I don't have a way to print at my house. I have a printer, but it needs new ink. So I would have to do this, by looking on the computer and then writing it down. But we want you to look at free response question from 2018, number 2. My older son took the CSA exam in 2018. So I'm always going to, I guess, remember that. I need to get his little booklet and see how Hunter did on that. But he is now in college, so it's in the rearview mirror for him. But we want you to look at this question. Mr. Schultz has been a CSA reader for a really long time, and he's going to detail out this question, how it was scored, scoring options. You're going to get a lot of insider information. So I've also linked for you the answer key. You may want to wait and not look at that. And I've also linked for you Chief Reader commentary. So those you may want to pause on until you see how you do tomorrow with what you did.
Yeah, no peeking.
That's right. So here's our show and share for today. You want to talk about this, Mr. Schultz?
Sure.
I just kept on talking. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. We said at the beginning that we've got students that are checking in with us from all over the country and from even outside the country. And so we wanted to showcase some of the things that those students have shared with us. We have Lucy, we have a meme from Uma in India. Welcome. There are 10 types of people, those who understand binary and those who don't. We're hearing some music right now, a piece composed by Karina. We're seeing Coco from Wisconsin, and let's see.
She's plotting on those little gerbils, or the hamsters.
Oh, yeah.
Guinea pigs, that's what they are.
We see guinea pigs who belong to Simon from Maryland, and they apparently don't enjoy Coco staring at them. And we mentioned a student from El Salvador who is joining us, and this is Ricardo's puppy who loves to help Ricardo paint. So welcome to everyone.
Yeah, so excited to hear where you're from.
We might have to rethink the music. That's really loud.
Is it?
So and One of our favorites, Floppy from Manhattan, says, continue to submit your 2 bits of CSA smiles via our form that Mrs. Westerland has shared, bit.ly/my2bits. College Board has asked us to share some information with you. Again, we talked about this last week. If you are a student who does not have internet access or a device, or if you know of a student who does not have access to the internet or a device, College Board is working on solutions to help you. So please fill out the form at cb.org/tech to share that information with College Board so that they can help you. We want to make sure that everybody has access to the internet and to the devices that they need. That's it for today.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you for sharing your pictures and your music with us. And make sure you do your homework so that we're ready to go over that free response question tomorrow. Everybody have a great day.
Bye, everybody.